Welcome to Rights for Pride. My name is Faith Israel, and I am your host for this event. I am the Diaspora and Inclusion Officer for SSAP and Hub Cymru Africa. And today we will be discussing some human rights issues within Africa for LGBTQ plus people. This event will be a webinar format, so that means only panelists will be on the screen. So please don't worry about appearing on the screen, and your microphones will all be muted. So again, don't worry about any noises. Please feel free to contribute to the discussion using the chat box. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A function, as my colleague will be keeping an eye on that, as all questions will be taken towards the end of the session. Any form of abusive, offensive language in the chat box or throughout the session will not be tolerated. So please listen with respect and be mindful of everyone's experiences. And so I am going to hand over to our amazing speaker to introduce herself. Aderonke, if you would like to tell us about yourself and your work.
Thank you, Faith, for inviting me to this event. My name is Aderonke Apata. I'm the founder and CEO of African Rainbow Family. I also have my background from law, and I've been managing African Rainbow Family now since 2014 that I founded it. We support people who are seeking asylum, who are LGBTIQ from African heritage, and also from any other part of the world, as long as they identify as an LGBTIQ person and they are seeking asylum. We have 5 centers in the UK: London, Birmingham, Manchester, Leeds, and Cardiff. And we have well over 600 people that we support every year. Our success rate is very high in terms of securing safety for people. Yeah, so I might just have to leave it at that first and then go on later. Yeah.
Thank you, and welcome, Matthew. It's amazing to see you. We're so glad that you've been able to join us. I will just let you know that you are on mute.
Oh, okay. So I am so sorry. I mean, you know how this technology thing works. Like, it just fails you at the last minute, and that just happened to me. I just realized that I wasn't using my Zoom email for this whole communication since. So yeah, I'm so sorry for coming late, and yeah, it's so nice to be here.
Don't worry at all. I was actually just handing over to Aderonke and you to introduce yourselves, as Aderonke has just told us a little bit about herself and her organization. If you could also just tell us a bit about yourself and the work that you do.
Sure. Thank you so much, Faith. And I'm so excited to be here sharing this space with Aderonke, because I have read so much of her works and also have been following her for a while. So it's so lovely to be on a panel with her. And my name is Matthew Blaze, and I am a non-binary LGBTQ rights activist, and I live in Lagos, Nigeria. My pronouns are they, them, and I am the co-founder of the Oasis Project. The Oasis Project is an LGBTQ organization in Nigeria that creates safe spaces for LGBTQ people to have, especially LGBTQ youth, to have healthy conversations around mental and sexual health. We also do advocacy and activism by running digital campaigns and also teaching queer people how to navigate the queer society in Nigeria every day. We also educate through social media about gender, sex, and sexuality in the Nigeria context, trying to reach the Nigerian populations on social media. And personally, I also use my page to teach people about pre-colonial queer history in Africa and this reality of being queer and trans in this continent. So I'm so excited to be here today and here today with Aderonke, sharing knowledge and also learning from people who have done this work before and who are still doing it, and finding ways we can find parallels between our works and collaborate for greater good. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. It's so great to hear your work and all the things that you've been doing and are continuing to do for LGBTQ plus people. So we've actually previously had an event that looks at queering African history, which Aderonke was a part of. And we discussed how African history has always included queer people. Queer people have always existed. And how those understandings didn't always fit neatly with our understandings today. But today I want us to really delve into just what is life like right now for African queer people? What are the human rights issues that we should be aware of and should be advocating for more coverage and for better rights? So Aderonke, I want to just start with you and just find out what your journey has been like in terms of helping queer Africans to relocate to the UK for safety, for other reasons. What is that like?
Thank you so much, Faith. Can I just say hello to Matthew? And yeah, just to say you're doing a very good job. And it's a pleasure that we're sharing this platform together. Yeah, in terms of my experience concerning queer people who are of African heritage coming to the UK to seek asylum or refuge, it has been quite a very tedious one, I would say, but eye-opening for me. Since 2014, when I founded African Rainbow Family, I started with just one person thinking, oh yeah, it's okay to be gay and it's okay to be different and also seeking asylum. Let's just do it as a peer support group. But I can say to you today that we're well over 600 people in African Rainbow Family. And when I say 600 people, people move out because we need to move people out of the service so that we can have more people coming in. So we don't have less than 600-700 in a year. So this tells you that there's a demand for what we do in African Rainbow Family. And if there's a demand, then the backdrop is a lot of people are fleeing persecution back in their home countries. In Nigeria, where I come from, for instance, we all know that it is 14 years imprisonment to be an LGBTQ person in Nigeria. And because of the abuse of the human rights, so many people have to flee from Nigeria and other parts of the world or African countries to come to the UK or any other country to seek refuge. And what we have seen is there's a lot of what is called disbelief in the asylum system, because the Home Office and probably the population also have this misconception that homosexuality is un-African. And I've always said to people, what is un-African is homophobia prior to when colonization came. But when colonization came, then homophobia became part of Africa. So it means that the people, when they come to seek asylum, are not believed by the system. And once the interviewer has that mind that you're coming to tell lies, that there's no way you can be a gay person coming from Africa. So you have so much to prove to the person to say, you know what, I'm not lying, this is who I am. And then this now leads to the standard of proof. So the standard of proof is so high that people have to do all sorts of things to be able to convince whoever is the interviewer to say that they are gay or they are lesbian or they are bisexual, they are trans, they are intersex, or however that they identify. In trying to do this and beat the standard of proof, so many people in the past have had to produce some nude recordings of themselves, having some private or intimacy with someone else, either their partner or someone else that they just find, just to be able to prove that this is who they are. Not until when African Rainbow Family raised this issue and we started campaigning about it, and there was a landmark decision that came in 2014, no, 2015, that such explicit audiovisual evidence should not be acceptable by the Home Office anymore. So you can see how much pressure that people are under to be able to say, I want to tell you that I'm a gay person. And apart from the disbelief, the system also sets people up to fail. And when I say the system sets people up to fail, what I mean is this. It is the system that says, if your circumstances change, do come to us and tell us. That's the asylum system. So for some people that actually left their countries, for instance, Nigeria, where I come from, to the UK for asylum, and they did not know that being an LGBTQ person, which is called a member of a particular social group, it's a way for them to be able to claim asylum. They would have claimed asylum on all other things. So by the time then they now realize that, okay, I can claim as an LGBTQ person, they go to the Home Office. The Home Office would say, you didn't mention this before. So you can see where I'm coming from when I say that the system sets people up to fail. You should have told us in the first instance, but they have forgotten that most people do not even know that you can claim asylum based on your sexual orientation or gender identity in the first instance. So when people come up, they say, no, you're just doing this as the last minute or as the last resort to remain in the UK. And another thing that I want to talk about is the time that it takes for the Home Office to give decision on people's asylum claims is such a long time. On the average, it's very, very long. We've seen some people that have been quite lucky within a few months of seeking asylum, they get granted, but that's not very common. We've had people who have been in the system for 10, 15, 20 years, still seeking asylum, trying to resolve their stay. And when people are waiting for that long, you know what can happen to people. People's mental health are affected, physical health are affected, and people are not even allowed to work. That's another bit. So there is no freedom for people to be able to go and get a job. If you were caught working, you'll be sent to prison for breaking the law. Only recently, because of the campaigns the African Rainbow Family mounted with some other organizations, that the Home Office now said, okay, after 1 year of your application and there's no decision, you can now apply to work. And when you're going to apply to work, it's got to be the shortage occupation list. That is to be doctors, to be engineers, to be managers. What if someone does not have such profession? What happens to them? So they're not allowed to work. But because of Brexit, which is good news, but to me, it's not good news. Because of Brexit, there's shortage in healthcare assistance or support work. Now people seeking asylum are able to work regardless if you're a doctor or a manager. But why did we have to wait for that long to be able to allow people to work in whatever field that they feel comfortable to work in? And the government only supports people with less than £40 a week. That covers food, that covers clothes, that covers transport, that covers toiletries, whatever it is. How can any human being survive on £40? It is still less than £40, but I just want to round it up to £40 in a week. So the system is not making it easy for anybody to come to the UK to seek asylum. It is toxic. And another bit that I want to talk about is the fact that the system also makes people go into exploitations. People are being exploited, either sexually or as domestic servitudes, because they're not allowed to work, because they need to prove their sexuality. So they go into relationships that they would otherwise not go into in order to say, I have a partner to prove that I am an LGBTQ people. So these are the things that we see every day when people come to us. People even go into destitution, especially when the Home Office says the cases are now exhausted. They don't have any grant to make any appeal. So the Home Office is not going to support them even with the £40 a week. So they slip off. And people can, while slipping off, commit crimes. They can be pressured to do some of the things that they would not ordinarily do. To me, it's a system that is good, but it does ruin people's lives. And there is this fear of being deported anytime back to people who they have run away from. What about the fear of being detained indefinitely in detention center, which ruins people's life? I've seen people in detention centers for 1 year to 3 years. They're not out. It is for administrative convenience. Unlike prison, if you go to prison here, you know when you're going to serve your prison sentence. You know the end. But in detention centers, you don't know when you're going to be released. So there are raised a whole lot of things. And another fear is people even get outed. When I say outed, the system make people come out. I don't believe that people should come out when they're not ready to come out. Coming out should be a thing of joy and something that somebody feels comfortable with. But because the Home Office needs proof, people are forced to come out and identify as an LGBTIQ person. Because the Home Office will say, you ran away from your country because of the fear of persecution. Now you're in the UK, where it is free for you to identify as anything you want to identify as. Why are you not out there? Why are we not seeing you on social media? Why are we not seeing your pictures out there? So that's the system outing people when it is not right for them to come out. And if you look at Rwanda, it's another big problem. The Nationality Act that was just signed, it seeks to criminalize people who come through the channel crossing. And we have LGBTIQ people who are at risk of being deported or trafficked. I call it trafficking. As far as I'm concerned, it is trafficking. It's the government trafficking people from the UK to Rwanda. From the government's impact assessment, they also noted that life for LGBTIQ people in Rwanda is not good. There's persecution. So why would you want to send someone who's come to the UK to seek asylum as an LGBTIQ person, and you don't want to deport them to Rwanda? So it tells you there's a lot of problems there. We come across so much problems when people come here to seek asylum. Just to say a little bit of, the problems that we come across in African Rainbow Family when people come to us.
Thank you for sharing that it was such an extensive look into what it's genuinely like for people who have left their home countries to come here and what life actually looks like when they get here. And I'm going to come back to you because I really want to know the ways in which African Rainbow Families help these people. But first, I just want to ask Matthew if you can speak to just daily life in Nigeria or Africa widely as a queer person, and how does this differ from life for cis-het people living in Africa, living in Nigeria?
Thank you so much, Faith. So I would say the reason why people experience violation is because there's something that enables it. It could be the law, it could be the leaders, it could just be a force that enables violation somewhere. And in Nigeria, what enables this violation uh, could could be traced to the kind of laws that we have. There are up to 9 laws that exist to criminalize LGBTQ people. Some of them were laws from the Victorian era, which the royal family has a hand in what we have. And we also have some of them that are also similar to laws that were uh, that were used during the colonial era to punish LGBTQ people. So 9 of these laws exist, and every day queer people are either finding ways to survive, to navigate this society that these very, very homophobic and violent laws exist. The recent one is the Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act, which was passed in 2014, and it stipulates that anyone who is caught just expressing love, signed PDA, will be put in prison for 10 years. And if you get married, you will be put in prison for 14 years. If you witness gay marriage, you will be put in prison for 10 years. And if you own gay clubs, you will be put in prison for 10 years. The outcome of laws like this is that it impacts how people view homosexuality and also being trans. It impacts their relationship with gay people, because sometimes the law has a way of normalizing violence and making it seem like it's okay because it is backed up by the law. And here in Nigeria, we see that people harm gay people and they feel it is okay because there's a law that exists that protects them for violating LGBTQ people. And we can also find this is where it is now over time due to the laws that existed during colonialism. And what happened before colonialism, we had people who were openly queer people, and it wasn't as difficult before homosexuality was institutionalized, and homophobia was institutionalized, and people were put in jails for being gay. People were taken away from their families. This whole culture, the culture of love, the culture of acceptance, the culture of celebration was disrupted, and we all have these all new ways of doing things, which is violation for people who are different from us. So we've seen how these aids have grown in the Nigerian society, and how currently there's a new bill that's Parliament is thinking of passing, which is the anti-cross-dressing bill. It aims to further criminalize cross-dressers, trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming people by putting them in jail for 6 months or having them pay a fine of 500,000 naira, which is not affordable for the average queer Nigerian. Talking about the socioeconomic implications of homophobia and transphobia and life of queer people, it is important that we note that despite how big Nigeria is and how we call ourselves the most populous country in Africa, which is true, we are still one of the poorest countries in the world. And what comes with poverty? What comes with poverty? There's a high rate of crimes that go on in the society, and there's a high rate of human rights violation that happens also in the society. And we know that queer people are always at the margin and at the mercy of others when it comes to situations like this. When it comes to socioeconomic challenges, queer people are always at the bottom, facing it in the most awful ways. So that's what we see in Nigeria. So a lot of queer people uh, are unable to afford housing. They're unable to afford these basic needs, unable to afford food. And upon that, there's the whole criminalization and the fact that you can't walk on the street close or freely because you embody all of these queer identities, and that makes it very, very hard. And I would say to also differentiate like the experiences between people here and people mostly in the West. In the West, we still see that, okay, there are laws that protect against homophobia. But in Nigeria, yeah, these laws don't exist that protect against homophobia. So you can be walking on the street and you'll be attacked and beaten, and nobody cares. You go on social media, you might see a video of you being beaten, go viral, and there's no sympathy anywhere, even from lawmakers, from the law, and other institutions of government. There's no sympathy anywhere because people don't give a fuck about you as a gay person. They don't care if you survive or not. So in all of this, queer people are heavily targeted even by the police. And we know how powerful the police unit is in the world. We see how like most of the budgets in big Western countries are put on policing. And also here in Nigeria, policemen are very, very powerful because they can twist things in a way that it doesn't favor you. And with how the economic situation is also in Nigeria, they are prone to be used as personal bodyguards for rich people, and also for people who just wants to be who people weaponize them, and also weaponize them against the LGBTQ community. Yeah, so the police regularly targets LGBTQ people. So when it comes to their facial expressions, we dress, we are profiled and attacked by the police. So queer people don't ever navigate the society freely. And even though it's stipulated in our constitution that we have the right to movement, as it seems now, we don't have that because we can't walk on the road as queer people. Our rights have been like taken away from us to walk on the road freely and openly as much as we want to do. And also there's the impact on also when it comes to sexual violence and also domestic abuse. We see that queer people are also at the margin of it because when queer people are attacked, when they are violated sexually, they have nobody to run to, nobody to talk to about it. The law, no. The medical system, no, because you can't really talk about your sexuality in the medical field. So you end up being quiet and not saying anything. And this has a long-lasting impact on the life of people, their physical well-being, their emotional well-being, their mental well-being, all this aspects of life that makes us human. It affects every one of them. So the situation for LGBTQ people in Nigeria is not nice. I would say it's also tedious. And the the only reason why I am hopeful at this point is the fact that young queer people are resisting in many ways, and they are using social media to combat hate, both physically and online. They are forming support groups, using mutual aid as a form of helping themselves, finding ways to collaborate with international organizations from way richer countries that are able to support their goals. Young queer people are finding ways in entertainment and just paving ways for themselves, creating new worlds for themselves. So yeah, I think it's the only hope that I have now, like the power of young people to change things and also radically advocate for their right, the right to live, the right to walk around freely, the right to just do whatever we want that is not harming people. Yeah, so yeah, I think when it comes to daily experiences of LGBTQ people, um, the law is not on our side. And when the law is not on your side, there are issues you face as human. There are psychological issues. There are financial issues. I mean, the economical issues of it. Every aspect of your life is being affected.
Thank you so much, Matthew, for that intimate look into life for you and other queer people in Nigeria and Africa. It's such a wide extending issue, like you've spoken about, from just socially, economically, mentally. It sounds like there are so many ways that these human rights violations really do harm queer people within Africa, within Nigeria. And I just want to go back to Aderonken and ask how is African Rainbow Families helping these queer people, queer African asylum seekers and refugees? How is your organization helping them to live a safer life within the UK?
Thank you, Faith. It's quite daunting, the way that we have to do things. But the better part of it is the fact that we are experts by experience. And when we say experts by experience, everyone in African Rainbow Family has been through the asylum system, or they are still going through the asylum system. So we have that expertise in order to support one another and be able to prescribe the appropriate solution to the issues that we are trying to change. In effect, what African Rainbow Family does to make sure that everyone that's come through our doors, or even those that have not come through our doors, that have gone to other organizations, is that we campaign, because African Rainbow Family was born out of campaigning. That's the first and foremost thing that we do. We campaign for a fairer and humane system for LGBTIQ people to seek asylum in the UK. We campaign against detention. I've spoken about detention before, how people are just being left in detention centers without ending. We campaign that people should not be deported. I'm not very sure the audience that you have, how much of familiarity that they have with the asylum system. I'm talking about prior to the pandemic. There was so much deportation happening for people who are seeking asylum based on their sexual orientation and gender identity. But because of the campaigns that we have been doing, I can tell you that that's reduced drastically. But that doesn't mean that people are not still being threatened with deportation. Because the big part of it is the Rwanda offshoring that has been signed into law. And we are campaigning with other organizations to see how the government can stop this, because it is human trafficking, as far as I am concerned, and as far as African Rainbow Family is concerned. That's the government literally getting themselves involved in human trafficking and modern day slavery. Another thing the African Rainbow Family does is advocacy. We do a lot of advocacy on behalf of the people that we support. And the way that we do that is to listen to their version of what's happened to them. I hate to call it story, because sometimes when you say story, it does diminish the importance of all of the worst experiences that people have been through. There are some that cannot even speak English. There are some that can speak English and yet cannot put their experiences to words the way that I should read to the Home Office or to the court that would want to look into their cases. So African Rainbow Family fills in this gap. We listen to them, we write it up for them. Whatever they tell us, we write them. And once they are satisfied with that, that becomes their personal statement. And that takes quite a long time. And when we have people who do not even speak English at all, we have to get interpreters, which we have to pay for as long as it takes. We speak on behalf of people to their solicitors to find out what is going on. Do not forget, because people have been through all this stress and trauma. And not only that, even back in Africa, my country, Nigeria, if you see anyone that is in position of authority, you are kind of scared to discuss with them. Therefore, people who come through our doors, they always find it very difficult to even talk to their solicitors or even express themselves. Solicitors that are supposed to be working for them. So because we know of this, we speak for them if they give us the consent to advocate for them with their solicitor. We also do that for them either with a GP or any other kind of organizations that they are involved in with their consent, though. If they don't give us the consent, there's nothing that we can do, because that would mean breaking GDPR confidentiality and all of that and all of that. So we get their consent to be able to do that. We signpost people to reputable solicitors who know about LGBTQ asylum political claims. And we work with the solicitors all of the time. But we can't really meet the demand of people as such, but we try as much as possible to make sure that everybody has a solicitor that can represent them. Some people are able to represent themselves, but 99% of people cannot. Not because they don't know what's happened to them, but because they don't understand the system, they don't know what to say. Another thing that African Rainbow Family does is we operate what we call body system. Because when people come to seek asylum in the UK, the caseworkers will always ask them to come and report at either the police station or at the immigration reporting center. This could be weekly, this could be daily, this could be once a month. It depends on what's the regime or whatever regime that the caseworker has given them. Some are scared because sometimes when people go to report, they get detained for deportation. So we operate this system whereby another person would go with them to know, just to give them like psychological and emotional support. And if they were detained, this person would alert us. And also we would then have to alert the solicitors so that they can start working on their behalf so quickly before they can be deported. We use a lot of our campaign and the work that we do for social change in order to influence decision-making in the asylum system, because it is unfair. We use our personal experiences to influence decision-making. We write a lot of submissions, and we go to inquiries by the parliament when they are asking about asylum seeking. We talk to them, we tell them, we give them recommendations. And also, we write support letters for people who come to use our service in order to say, this is what we know about them when they are going to court or when they are going to the Home Office for their asylum application. And in some cases, we go to the courts to give oral evidence for them. And sometimes some people would say, I like people to come to the court. So other people who use our service will go just to give them like body support in court, which is quite important. Don't forget, when you are in court alone, you're scared. You don't even understand the system. But when people from your community come with you, they know that you are part of that community. And it also gives you that self-esteem and confidence to be able to go through the court process. That we do. And our African Rainbow family also does write what we call the country expert report for anyone who needs one. And this is for us to talk about what's happening in their country, and then we relate it to their own situation. And we present that to the Home Office or to the court. And we usually would go to court to defend this for them. And for the people, we think it's not just about seeking asylum, we have to think about people's mental health and their well-being. Therefore, we make sure that we have events going on at one point or the other. We have Pride event going on, we have conferences that we do, we have workshops that we deliver, and we ask people to become volunteers whilst they are waiting so that their mental health will be increased. And not only increasing their mental well-being, they also will be gaining the experience that they would need for when they get granted their stay. In this country, if you don't have any previous experience, it becomes very difficult for you to get a job. Therefore, we ask people to participate in whichever way that they can, become volunteers so that they can have that experience when they are starting their jobs. We do, say, hold picnics. We give people support in terms of financial subsistence. Remember, I said people live on less than £40 a week. So when they are coming to events and meetings, they need to pay for their transport because they are not allowed to work. We subsidize this for them. We might not be able to meet as much as they have spent, but we do try our best just so that they can leave home and reduce their isolation. And this also helps their mental well-being. Because I think the £40 was in a way to keep people off the streets so that you don't mingle with other people who can support you if you were facing deportation. They don't want people to interact. So we come in there to ensure that people can leave their homes, interact with other people who are out there. We also have what we call moving on and integration. And this happens when people get granted their stay. When people get granted their stay, that is when the problem starts again. A lot of people will be saying, oh, I just want to get granted. I just want to get granted. I can bet you the person that has been granted asylum is facing more problem also. The only difference is they are free. They're not going to be deported. But they have only 28 days to vacate the Home Office accommodation. Some of them have no clue where to go to. So we help them in navigating that area, getting job, doing their CV, teaching them interview techniques, and also assisting them for housing, going back to school, because we say to people, if you are granted, even when you are not granted, there's still the room for you to go back to school, which is free from the government. So we encourage people to do all of this so that they can make use of the time that they are waiting on for their stay to come through. And we give the people some people who have been granted stay, or even when they've not been granted stay, but they have what we call the permit to work. When we have vacancies coming up in African Rainbow Family, we ask them to apply. And for most of them, it's the first job in the UK that they are doing. So we take them on, and we know that they don't have the experience, but we take them on, we give them the experience that they need, so that by the time they want to move on, then they can get better job. We know that BME people have so much disadvantage when it comes to jobs that we're even qualified for. So not to talk of someone who has no experience at all, it becomes more problematic for them to get good jobs. So anytime we have work or vacancies going on in African Rainbow Family, we always encourage people to apply so that we can give them that better start in life. By the time they get granted, then they move on. They already have what it is to work in the UK. They have the experience of how to work in the office. We just don't want people to be doing all of the menial jobs like most people would probably just resort to when they can really do good jobs. So these are the kind of opportunities that we give to people. We do a lot of counseling for people. We pay counselors because we have a pool of counselors that we have vetted, and they are all LGBTIQ people. People go through trauma. We have seen people who have had 20 sessions of counseling that African Rainbow Families got to pay for, just so that they can have good mental health and well-being whilst they are seeking this asylum, and even after they've sought the asylum. So there's a whole range of things that African Rainbow Family does.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. It's, yeah, so many things that African Rainbow Family is doing, and it's wonderful to hear because it addresses so many of the issues that you and Matthew have spoken about regarding mental health, just integration into society with work, housing. It's wonderful to hear all the different ways that African Rainbow Family is helping queer Africans within the UK. And a question to Matthew, but also to you, Adironke, is what would you like to see more people in the UK doing to help the human rights of queer people within Africa? What things, would you both like to see being done more?
Well, do you want to speak first, Matthew, or you want me to go? Okay. There's a whole range of things that people can do, either to support those that are here, who are LGBTIQ people, or LGBTIQ people in Nigeria, or in other parts of Africa. The first thing is education. People need to be educated. They need to know, first and foremost, that homosexuality is part of Africa, is part of us. And we need to be campaigning about repealing all these anti-gay laws. Nigerians' law is so toxic. They're holding hands alone, send you to jail. If you are perceived, not that they are sure that you are, just that they perceive that you are, it's imprisonment. People lose their homes. Therefore, I will be saying that people should be good allies, campaign to repeal all these laws. I'm not naive around the fact that once the laws are repealed, that's the end to it. That's not it. It is just the first step, because it is the cultural thing that is more important. We need to be able to change people's minds. We need to be able to change the way that people are thinking, and for them to know that there's nothing wrong with an LGBTIQ person. They are just like you. So until people can begin to see that, I think it's going to go a long way before we can do anything. But for people who want to help or say, what is it that I can do to make changes happen? At every point that they have the opportunity, they need to be speaking up for these laws to be repealed. And they need to be finding ways of making sure that people can begin to have different orientation. But do not forget something. As toxic as Nigerians' anti-gay law is, for instance, if a young man or a young woman or a young person in Nigeria has a good job, I can tell you, with this age of technology, people would think less of their neighbor who is an LGBTQ person because they will be meaningfully engaged. And that would even expose them to understanding that there's nothing wrong with LGBTIQ persons. But for someone who wakes up in the morning, who has nowhere to go to, who's probably gone to universities, come out, and has no job, that's when he or she will begin to think, oh, I think I saw Jack and Jane, or I saw Jack and Jack holding hands. Jane and Rachel, they were holding hands. Then they begin to report people. So what I'm talking about is the economy of these countries are quite important to be invested upon. There are so many people who have fled their home countries, people that should be contributing to the economy of their countries. Therefore, if the environment was an environment where they could strive, they would build the economy. But in terms of people living here in the UK who are seeking asylum, there's a lot that can be done. We need more people to campaign for the government in the UK to change how they assess LGBTIQ asylum applications. They've made a bit of improvement, but not as much as we want. They need to stop this Rwanda flights. Whatever it is that they have done with Rwanda, that they have had the contract, that contract's got to be scrapped because it's not going to work. It's just going to endanger more lives. So we need more MPs speaking up. We need more NGOs talking about this. People who are who can use whatever position that they have to campaign and say this Rwanda offshoring must end. And time for decision making must be quite speedy because it is killing. You need to have experienced it to know what I'm talking about. You can only hear it, but if you've been through it, you know what it is for you to stay for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years without a job, without money coming from anywhere. It is killing. So the system needs to change, and there's no way it can change without people who are allies speaking up on behalf of people that are seeking asylum. We need better housing for people here. Do you know the kind of houses that they keep people who are seeking asylum in the UK? The houses that the local authority have condemned, adjudged to be inhabitable. That's where they keep people seeking asylum. All these things need to change. And people need to be able to work as soon as they come to claim asylum. The standard of proof needs to change. In fact, that needs to go. And my understanding from all of the other organizations that African Rainbow Family work with, that support people from outside of the UK, we need to be working with organizations on the ground in those countries to know what is right and how to assist them. Because oftentimes, African Rainbow Family cannot help someone outside of the UK, but we can campaign for equality rights, which we do all of the time. But we don't want to step into a country and do not know how to do it. There's this saying of mine that if you have headache, you have a good friend who wants to really help you. They really genuinely want to help you, and they give you paracetamol. They've not asked you, have you had this headache in the past? What do you think is right for you to use? But genuinely, they want to help you. And you take the paracetamol, it doesn't work. But if they ask you, you can say to them, the last time I had this kind of headache, I used ibuprofen. They can go get you ibuprofen because they're doing it genuinely. And you use it, and your problem is solved. So this is why I always say we need to work with activists, organizations that are local to the countries that we are trying to support to change their laws, because they are there. They know what works well. You cannot just sit down in the UK and begin to prescribe how you want to repeal the law in Nigeria. To me, it doesn't work. Well, Matthew might have a different opinion, but that's what I think.
I mean, I don't have a different opinion. I mean, everything you said is like top notch. So I'll just add that it's very, very important what Aderonke said about education. Education is very, very important at this point. Let us find ways, different innovative ways to educate ourselves and also educate coming. Find innovative ways to educate ourselves um, and also those who are not around us about LGBTQ issues. And also there's a need for more funding to be put into the work that activists are doing in their different aspects of the world. In the UK, there's a need to put money into the work Aderonke is doing because it is cost effective. And also in Nigeria, there's a need to put funding where we are doing this work. So we can't remove the impact of financing this work in creating the change that we want. At this moment, it's all about capitalism, and it's using the capitalist language to achieve these solutions. I mean, because capitalism brought this problem, and we have to use its own language to correct them. So there's a need for money to be put into the works of LGBTQ activists, and also there's lobbying. I mean, there are a lot of lawmakers in Nigeria that come to the UK to stay there, and then they make very, very harmful laws in Nigeria where they criminalize LGBTQ people, and they go to places like the UK where gay people can be gay and they live their best life in these places. I think it's very, very important for them to be called out and also for them to be asked difficult questions. And I think it's important that we are able to achieve this through collaborating with ourselves to know what is happening in our different worlds and find ways to navigate these issues. So I feel, yes, there are different ways, but these ways, education, collaboration, funding, more funding into the work we do are like very, very important ways for us to create the change that we want.
Yeah, sorry, if I may just come in here. Yeah, another thing that I want to propose is for safe passage for people to reach the UK. We know that crossing the channels, people have been dying crossing the channels, and we have LGBTIQ people amongst these people that cross the channels. Even if they are not, nobody wants anybody to die. So when we see people who can lobby the MPs, who can change laws, we would be asking, and that's what we are asking all of the time, that there should be safe and legal passage where people can arrive safely in the UK and claim asylum and get their claims looked into quickly and in the way that it should be looked into, with humanity, because that's very, very key. We don't want people to be looked at as objects. And talking about collaboration, I think that's very key also, that people need to work together. And there are some people who, because they are safe, they put the lives of other people back in their home countries in jeopardy. Because they can fly from the UK to their home countries, because they have the money to safeguard themselves whilst they're there. They make it look as if there's no problem in their countries. These people need to look inwards and search their souls, because they are risking people's lives.
Thank you for that reminder of the importance of, considering the lives of people who are still in Africa and ensuring that even with good intentions, people are not endangering the lives of individuals who are queer and living in Africa still. And thank you as well for just the many ways that you have explained how we in the UK can help. Both Matthew and yourself actually touched on what would have been my next question regarding NGOs who have African partners, as this is the majority of who we work with at Hub Cymru Africa and SSAP. And I was actually going to ask, what NGOs could be doing to assist LGBTQ plus people in Africa. But you've both mentioned about that collaboration, about working with groups who are already doing the work in these countries that you may want to help with. So thank you so much for those tips as well. That was, just such a great and in-depth outline of what we can do over here. And as SSAP is a diaspora organization, I want to ask what you and Matthew both think the African diaspora, whether it's in the UK or elsewhere, can do to help LGBTQ plus people in the UK and back in maybe their home countries or other African countries. Are there any specific things that you feel the African diaspora may be best placed to assist with or to help LGBTQ African people with?
Well, there's a lot that they can do. Yeah, the first is campaigning, because they are here in the UK or in other safe countries. So they have that edge of being able to use their platforms to speak up for other people who have been repressed as a result of their sexual orientation and gender identity. They can campaign for people for a better system and for a better system back home. I can assure you, Faith, if you ask 90% of people who left their countries, who are LGBTIQ people, or even not LGBTIQ people, they don't want to leave home. I never wanted to leave Nigeria. Not that I hate where I am, I'm happy here. But ordinarily, if you ask me, I want to stay in my country. But because it's not possible, that's why I'm here. So we should all look at how do we do it without us trying to have competition amongst us, because that's one thing I have realized, that people want to see, I don't know, it's not something that is healthy. They don't kind of collaborate well because one wants to shine above the other to be seen as the one that is helping people back home or people here in the UK. And that slows down progress because it frustrates people when you want to work with such people. So this is another thing that people need to look into and do not see it as something that is personal to them. They should see it as something that is they should do for humanity's sake, for people to be free, not because they want to boost their own ego. They should take that aside. And another thing is, say for instance, people who are seeking asylum in the UK here, I've always said it and I'll continue to say it. If anyone was facing deportation from anywhere, whether they are part of African Rainbow Family, touch wood, nobody will get deported. But if people are being threatened with deportation and people in the diaspora hears of it, whether they've met them before or not, they should be able to stand up and come to their aids. Because they should understand what would happen to them were they to be deported back to their countries. So they shouldn't be saying, oh, I'm free here, I've got my stay, I'm okay, I'm not even looking for, I don't need asylum because I was born here and I'm LGBTQ, so that's fine, I'm not going to be bothered. People should be bothered. We need love. We should come to the rescue of other people when they are in need. And we should try to show some empathy for people. Some people just seeking asylum here, all they just need is for you to explain how the system works for them, because they've never experienced it before and nobody's taken them through it. So if there are no support groups like African Rainbow Family, how would some of them have heard? So there might be a need for some other people to just think, can I start a support group to give help? If they can, why not? Let them do that and, begin to support other people, because there are a whole lot of people who are LGBTIQ who need support in this country and they are seeking asylum. That is the truth. On our waiting list, as I'm talking to you, we have 60 people who have been waiting for the past 6 months to be registered into African Rainbow Family. So if we have other groups that are good, there might be other groups, but I'm talking about groups that are good, that know what they're doing. We wouldn't have such waiting list. So if somebody was seeking asylum and is still waiting for 6 months to join my group, it beats my heart every day, because I can't support them for that 6 months period that they have been waiting, and anything can happen to them within that 6 months period. So we need more support groups that can do good work to support people who are seeking asylum. And if individuals can start groups, it doesn't have to be a registered charity overnight. If they need tips, they can contact us. We will help them to set up.
Thank you so much for that, Aderonke. That's such a great quick list of things that the diaspora can do, and I'm sure diaspora anywhere will be able to take this information on and hold some of these support groups, support people in other ways that you've mentioned. Matthew, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add that you feel that the African diaspora can also be doing to help queer Africans in their home or in other African countries as well.
For me, I'll just add quickly, because Aderonke has said most of them. I feel it's very, very important also that they use their power in whatever way they have to impact change somehow, because I feel like the African diaspora have like more proximity to most African leaders who visit the states or the UK or the West. Currently, one of the presidential candidates, Peter Obi, is on a tour and is going to Germany. Imagine people in Germany, queer people in Germany, asking Peter Obi about his mandate, his queer mandate. Is there anything like that? Imagine the kind of impact it would make, because back at home here, we are unable to ask these questions. So imagine people doing this work for us, reaching places where we can't reach. So I feel there are ways we can collaborate and make this happen. And through these ways, no one is left behind, and we are able to achieve the change that we want.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. That's something that's also very valuable, being able to use that position that the diaspora has, that Africans within their own country may not have that position to ask direct questions to presidential candidates. So thank you. That was a really invaluable piece of advice for the African diaspora. And I just want to thank both the speakers for their wealth of information that they've been sharing with us so far. We're going to take questions. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to use the chat function now or the Q&A function to ask questions before we end the session. This is your time. And while we wait for questions, I'm gonna be a bit cheeky and ask one of my own. I find that often the narrative around Africa can sometimes be paint things in a really bleak way, and not to say that the situation isn't serious, but I guess I was just wondering if there were any misconceptions about queer African people that either of you would like us in the audience to know. Yeah, if there's anything that you're like, actually, people often get this wrong.
Okay, I think I'll just go because I have to run soon, so I'm just going to answer this quickly. So yes, there are misconceptions about queerness, homosexuality in Africa. And one of the greatest misconceptions would be what Aderonke said earlier, which is homosexuality being un-African. So this rhetoric has led to a lot of African leaders making very, very nasty laws that criminalizes and violates LGBTQ people's human rights. So this misconception that LGBTQ people are un-African makes it also difficult for visibility to happen in the continent, because people have been lied to and they've been made to believe that as queer, they are abnormal to be in an African society. So people hardly believe when people come out, when queer people come out, they are not believed. They are not, they feel like there's nobody that will believe them, because people hardly believe that there are queer people in their churches, there are queer people in politics, there are queer people in their homes, queer people are their brothers, queer people are their sisters. They don't believe these things due to how for a very, very long time we've been lied to as queer people and as a society in general that we are not African, we are just remnants of colonialism in this country, in this continent. And also, I feel like there's this misconception that queer people, young queer people in Africa are not doing anything about the situation of LGBTQ rights in Africa. Trust me, queer people, especially young people, are organizing in different ways, showing up for their communities in different ways, and also just putting their voices out there, making it valuable somehow in different ways. Queer people are finding ways to go into music, the entertainment industry. They're finding ways to create safe spaces for themselves in various ways. So there's that misconception that they are not doing anything, which is not true. And also, there's a misconception that the movement in Africa is largely funded and is graciously funded, that it's a money-making machine. If you are gay, you have so much money. If you have a gay organization, you have like money falling from your roof and you have to just start picking them up, which is not true. The movement in Africa is largely underfunded, and queer people in this part of the world have to rely on mutual aid to get work done. Sometimes they have to self-fund their projects. They have to do a lot of this. They have to do a lot of things that are not financially wise for their own survivor in a country like this, in a continent like this. So it's very, very important that we clear these misconceptions and find ways that we can further educate people about what is happening really in the continent. The movement is largely underfunded in Africa. And as opposed to what people think about it being largely funded and graciously funded, African culture is very, very queer, as opposed to what people think about it being un-African, being remnants of colonialism or colonial legacies in this place. And also that queer people in Africa are waiting for their savior to come from the West to save them. No, no, no. Queer people are not waiting for that at all. We are creating change. We are fighting in different ways. We are showing the power of community coming together to create change that we want. So these are just it for me. And yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Matthew. This was very interesting for us to have this little insight. Byd-eang, I don't know if there was something you wanted to add. I've missed you off mute.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about this misconception that you cannot be an LGBTQ person and also be religious. It is something that I think people need to begin to move away from, because it is the evangelicals from the US that are pumping money into Africa, especially Nigeria. The churches there. I don't think there's a street in Nigeria that does not have a church. I'm not condemning religion. It is good if people are religious. If they believe in God, let them continue to believe in God. But it is when the evangelicals are beginning to use them against us, that's where I have issues with them. And they are very, very quick to quote some parts of the Bible that do not make any sense, because they've not even read those parts of the Bible very well. And then sometimes when people go to claim asylum here, one very good question that they ask here is, are you a Christian? Are you a Muslim? Or do you have a religion? And if you say yes, they say, how do you reconcile your religion with your sexuality? As if there's something different. We are talking about you as a human being. How can you take away your religion from you if you were to be a religious person? If you're not a religious person, that's fine, because that's what you are. So why do people think it is difficult or that it is impossible to be an LGBTIQ person and also be religious? Maybe they've forgotten in the Bible that we're told that God created us in his own image. So God that created a gay man, a lesbian woman, in his own image. So what are we talking about? So this is where I say people have not really read whatever book that they read in terms of their religion. I don't know much about Quran because I can't read it. I'm not a Muslim. But about the Bible, I can read it and I know what it means and I know what it says. So for this misconception of, oh, how do you reconcile your sexuality with your religion? It's like you asking, how do you reconcile your sexuality with eating, or you eating food? That's the way that I see it. So I think people need to begin to move away from that. It is the evangelicals from the US that are pumping money into Nigeria. And you can see how much money that these pastors are making in Nigeria. They all have jets, and Nigeria people are in poverty. This is where all of this is coming from. So people need to begin to have second thoughts around that.
Thank you for that addition as well. It's something that I'm sure many queer Africans would be grateful to hear, and many other people as well would also benefit from knowing that this is a misconception. And funnily enough, so we have a question, but your misconception that you just gave made me think of an organization, and this person's question says, both of you are doing great work, but I was wondering if you could shine a light on a few other organizations who are doing work that you think is particularly important. And I know that there is a reverend who has an organization for queer BAME Christians in the UK. And it just kind of made me think from what you were saying regarding religion and queerness, that those two things can coexist. So I will put that organization in the chat. But Adironke, Matthew, if there is any organization, any activist that you would like to highlight, please let us know.
Oh yeah, I think there is, that question is from Claire, isn't it? Rainbow Migration is another organization in the UK here who does important work for people who are LGBTIQ and seeking asylum. They've been around for quite a long time, longer than African Rainbow Family. And they're doing a good job also. So I think they are just based in London.
Thank you. If you could put the name in the chat for anybody who wanted to look them up, that would be fantastic. I can see we've got another question here, which says, what do you think of the new change in law in Singapore, where homosexuality will now be decriminalized, but to appease opponents of that, the path towards marriage equality and family rights has been made much harder? Should campaigners in Africa attempt to change laws little by little, reassuring opponents that society won't change as a result, or push for radical change and reject homophobic opposition altogether? So quite the question here, but Adironke or Matthew, I don't know if you've got an answer to that.
Yeah, I am very, very excited. In fact, when I heard about the Singapore law, being decriminalized, I think it's a good step. If you remember, I said earlier on that repealing laws, which are anti-gay laws, it's not the end of LGBTIQ people being accepted or being less criminalized, because there's jungle justice from the society. Therefore, if it is possible to have incremental repeal of these laws, so be it. We want the law gone. Do not forget that even in the UK here that we say everyone is free, which we believe because that's where I'm here, we still have people who face homophobic attacks. But the difference is you can go to the police because there's no law against you and say to the police, somebody has done this to me. They will investigate, and if they find it to be true, they will prosecute the person. So that's why we are talking about the law being repealed, so that people can have reproof in order to go to the law enforcement when their own rights are being infringed upon. But the societal part of it is quite and is equally very, very important. In Nigeria, we have people who just take the law into their own hands. They are mobs. They call themselves vigilantes. They beat people up. They set people ablaze. This is where I was talking about orientation, about education, because the culture of the society also needs to change, not just the law. So if there is room for incremental change of these laws to be repealed, why not accept? It is always something good. But if it is possible to have an outright decriminalization, why not? If that's possible, I'm sure people will be up for it.
Thank you for that. And just as a question, you know, it's the laws and the assets that, oh, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah. We can now, Faith. You were a bit scratchy for a minute, but you're back.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a little internet connection unstable. Okay. Okay, you can hear me. Great. So yes, pushing through decriminalization as well as changing people's attitudes socially. And with regard to reassuring opponents that society won't change, do you think that this is something that campaigners should be doing, or in your opinion, do you think it's just radical change that campaigners should be pushing for?
Well, I'm not going to say just radical. Let me give you the example. I have been campaigning for a very, very long time. And my campaigning started from what I call direct action. From direct action, which I'm still doing, I know that there are some situations that do not need direct action. Therefore, if activists are trying to repeal the laws in their countries, and they're just looking for radical ways to do it, sometimes it might not work. This is why I was talking about, if from the diaspora we want to help people who are outside of here in Africa, we should be talking to the people on the ground because they would know what would work in their own countries. Some of them would know if radical change is what is needed. Some would say to you, let us lobby, because they understand their system. As for me, I do not want to prescribe just one way of decriminalization. People can't go as much as doing radical change approach. But at the same time, they need to be thinking of how else can we work? For instance, so many people have spoken to me that I should use my platform to seek for sanctions for my country, Nigeria. And I'll tell you what my answer was. I would never do that. Not because I do not want the law repealed in my country. I want it. I have campaigned about it. I have petitions that I've delivered to the Nigerian Commission. I've spoken to Nigerian leaders about this. And I've spoken to people here in the UK that I know that can influence this. But if there's a sanction in Nigeria, my people would suffer. And when I say my people, I'm talking of the old people, I'm talking of children, I'm talking of women, I'm talking of people that are weak. Because I know that in my country, the politicians, they have so much money. There's no much sanction that you can place on Nigeria that they will ever suffer. The politicians who are making these laws will never suffer. But everyday person in Nigeria, common person, would suffer as a result of that sanction. Then of what use is it to me? Because I want not to be criminalized in my country, for so many people to be hungry, for so many people to die. It makes no sense. So if people want to do radical change, they should look on the ground and see what is right for their situation that would not affect other people. But incremental change also is good. There's nothing wrong in that.
Thank you for that very well-rounded answer. Matthew, did you want to?
Yeah, like also to just add, it's very, very important that we diversify our movement, really, the approach to these things, how it works. And for some people, while radical form of activism might not work for them, for other people, it could work. It could work. So it's just about the conceptualizing it, the context, like putting it in context. That's what I mean. Putting it in context. For a place like Nigeria, I don't think radical activism could work, because it's going to further endanger LGBTQ lives. But there are people, individual queer people, activists who are very, very radical in the ways they do things. And there are just different ways. I feel as a movement, it's high time that we think of these ways that things can be done, different approaches they can be done, and not just stick to a particular language, which at the long run, it does not really benefit all of us. It could benefit people in a particular region who are able to do something with that language, or for people in other regions, they might not be able to do things with that approach. So what I'm just trying to say is that it's very, very important that we diversify our approaches to change making. And while some might want to be very, very radical in their approach, understanding their context, some might be liberal in their approach. Some might want to do it in other ways. Some might want to combine approaches. So yeah, I just hope that we are able to let this lead us and understand that despite all our approaches, we can all come together and celebrate ourselves and still get it going.
Thank you for that joint answer that you've both given. That really does highlight that there is a need for many approaches, and also what Matthew said regarding being mindful of the specific context as well. Because Africa is a big place. We are talking generally, but there are many different groups within countries, many different countries in and of itself. And so I'm sure many approaches, will be beneficial in different places. So thank you both for that answer. And on to the next question, which asks, is there a pre-written guide for writing a letter or email to our local MPs against the Rwanda plan? So Byd-eang, I think this is probably one for you to take.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. I would say there is a template which I can share with you. afterwards, Faith, I'll send it to you that people can send to their MPs. And yeah, it's just like the way that we're talking about change. Do we want radical change? Of course, some people have tried to stop the flight physically. We are asking some people to lobby through their MPs. Some people are going to court to challenge the legality of that approach. So there are so many ways that laws can be changed. It depends on the situation. Yeah, so I would send you a pre-written template that you can share amongst your networks for them to send to their MPs to see what they can do about the Rwanda.
Thank you, and we will, yes, we will share that link with all attendees. So don't worry, you will all receive that. And a final question, which says, is it very important for LGBT people seeking asylum to be out of the closet if they're not ready? What do you both think?
I said that when I was speaking earlier on around people being forced to be out. That is just another question there. My thinking, whether you're seeking asylum or you're not seeking asylum, an LGBTQ person should come out when they are comfortable and when they feel like they want to come out, when it is right for them to come out. If you're seeking asylum in the UK, the Home Office, I don't want to say inadvertently, I think they do it knowingly in a covert way to make everybody to come out. Because some of the decisions that they give people is, you're not in an organization, an LGBTQ organization. You've not attended any event. You're not out there. In a way, you are telling the person who desperately needs safety to go out and put their faces out there. So they've been forced to be outed. To me, I don't think it is important for people to be out. Whether you're seeking asylum, you're not seeking asylum, people should not be forced to be out. But that's not the situation with people seeking asylum, unfortunately. But with the campaigns that we are running, I think things are changing, honestly, because we have seen some people, even that have not been to events out there, that we've supported and they've got their papers. It's just that it's very, very minimal in terms of number. So people are forced to be out, unfortunately. Sorry about that people feel that way. I feel bad that that's happening. This is why we need to keep on campaigning so that it doesn't happen again. It can change. Things were so bad before. I'm talking of 13 years that it took me to get my own asylum in this country. It was bad. It wasn't like this. So things are changing, but not as much as we thought it would have been. So who knows? Very soon, that might not be a requirement of seeking asylum again. Yeah.
Thank you for that answer. I know that the reality is unfortunately not where we want it to be, but we now are aware of the situation and we can all in our own ways campaign for this to change. So thank you, Aderonke, for your answer. And thank you to everyone who submitted questions as well. As a shout out, which I think is a lovely note to end on, from one of the attendees, who wants to shout out Mami Aderonke for doing such a fantastic job, for your love and compassion and help, and regarding how you've taken care of LGBTQ people in African Family Rainbow. She just wanted to say thank you. So thank you, Aderonke, from all of us as well, for participating in this. big thank you to Matthew as well. We really, really appreciate you making the time to come and speak with us. It's been wonderful listening to both of you. I followed Matthew personally for such a long time, and I'm really glad that we've been able to hear both of your experiences, as well as practical things that we can all be doing to change the situation for queer people in Africa and for African queer people in the UK. We really, really appreciate both of you coming here and both of you speaking with us. This session has been recorded, so if you have missed anything, don't worry. It will be on our YouTube page shortly after the event. And I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who's joined us today, everyone who's made time to come and listen to our amazing speakers. Thank you for attending. We really appreciate it. And hopefully we will see everybody at our next event. Aderonke, I don't know if there's any final word, or Matthew, if you had a final word that you wanted to leave the participants with.
Yeah, thank you, whoever made that shout out, and thank you for inviting me. And I think it's been an experience that is quite eye-opening for all of us. But I just want to say something, which is, please and please, in whichever way that you can, however little or big that you can, campaign for a fairer and more humane LGBTIQ asylum application system in the UK. Please do. And not just those that are seeking asylum. Worldwide, I want people in my country to be free. So if there's anything that you can do, don't think it is too small. Don't think you need to wait until you can become a minister or that you can write a law. No, little things do matter. Please do, to help our brothers and sisters outside of this country to live well and to be themselves and to be able to identify proudly as they would like to identify. So thank you, Faith, for putting this together. It has always been fantastic. The last time it was a brilliant topic. And today, I think, yeah, you've moved the bars again. Thank you. Well done for doing the good job.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aderonke. Thank you, Matthew, and thank you, everybody. Yes, please, the session is now over, but we really appreciate you attending. Bye, everyone.